Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Well, welcome to Topics on Tap, the 2018 mayoral race. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on this very blustery but typical South Dakota winter. My name is Paige Pearson-Meyer, and I serve on YPN Steering Committee. This event is hosted by the Sioux Falls Young Professionals Network and AARP. Both YPN and AARP believe being educated is important to being an active citizen. That is why we are here today, and let's get it going. We are excited to have Sarah Jennings moderating this event. Sarah is the Vice President of AARP's Central Region. She provides leadership, management, and oversight of the association's operations and activities in Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, and the great state of Wisconsin. Prior to joining AARP, Sarah worked on Capitol Hill for 11 years, first as a senior legislative aide on both the House and Senate sides, and then as Chief of Staff to then U.S. Senator, now Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton. Sarah attended Wellesley College, where she earned her bachelor's degree in political science and economics. She lives in Sioux Falls and is married with 2 children who keep her on her toes. For fun, Sarah and her family enjoy exploring our great city, and she occasionally appears in local community theater productions and runs Ragnar relay races with a group of women here in Sioux Falls. Please welcome Sarah Jennings.
That was a lot about me, so moving on quickly. Thanks everybody for being here, and I think all of us are excited because this is one of the first times we're seeing all of our candidates in one spot, so we're excited to hear you all tonight. So that everyone's aware, the way this is going to go tonight, we're going to have 2-minute openings and closing statements, and then we're going to do 90-second answers to each question. We do have a timekeeper, and I've threatened that if anybody goes really over, I will tackle them or do something very dramatic up here, since you know I go on stage. And also I want to let everyone know we are using Twitter this evening, so if you have a question that comes up while you're watching this, you can tweet using the hashtag #TopicsOnTap, and I'm going to keep an eye on Twitter, and we have had a lot of questions already come in, so I don't think we're going to be able to get to every question, but I'm sure going to try, and I will also let you know that when I see that there's topics coming in or questions coming in on a similar topic, I will try to paraphrase to get it so that we can address the issue with as many of the sort of details that you all have put into your question. So you'll have to trust me on that we're going to get to as much as we can, and I've encouraged the candidates, if they can answer the question in less than 90 seconds, to do so that we can get to more questions tonight. But to get going, we're going to start again with opening statements for 2 minutes each, and we're going to start with Kenny here to my right.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. It's great to see the interest in our city and community. My name is Kenny Anderson Jr., and I'm running for mayor because I believe in this community. I believe in the potential in this community, and I think that we can continue to do better here in our community. I'm a lifelong resident of Sioux Falls. I attended Sioux Falls Public Schools, and then I joined the Marine Corps and spent 4 years in the Marines. Then I came home. One of the reasons I came home is because I wanted to work with my father in a family business that we had here in Sioux Falls for about 15 years. And after that, my father actually became a city commissioner here in Sioux Falls and started an interest in politics for me. After that, after his passing and that, I did several different things, went back to school, got my degree, and then decided that I wanted to get more involved again. The first time I ran for election, I ran against an incumbent named Dee Knudsen, and I speak highly of her. And the reason why is because when she decided to get back in the race, the first thing she did was called me, and we had a conversation. We talked about our city and the way that these elections should happen, and that was that we should be talking about how we can make our community better. And it's not us against each other, it's us showing our vision for this city. So I hope that that's what you'll hear today. You'll listen to different visions and make your decision that way. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the evening.
Great, thank you, Jim.
My name is Jim Entman, and I also am a lifelong resident of Sioux Falls here. My great-grandfather migrated to Sioux Falls back in the early 1900s. He could not speak English. He raised his family, and I am the oldest of 8 kids in my family. My little sister is 18 years younger than I am. 45 years ago, we started a family business. My brother and myself and I. And I always tell the story about when we started this business. It was a small engine repair shop. When we started this business, we had 2 leather jackets, a men and a woman's leather jacket, and we had 2 t-shirts. One was white and one was black, and there were 2 of us. Between my brother and myself, we did everything from getting our hands dirty, being mechanics, selling new motorcycles, selling used motorcycles, all the repairs associated. Back in the day that we got started in 1975, riding a Harley-Davidson motorcycle was not a socially accepted thing to be doing, let alone a socially accepted business. I'm here to tell you, we fast forward to where we are at today. Today, I'm proud to tell you that after 43 years as a Harley-Davidson dealer, we have 4 operating companies, J&L Harley-Davidson in Sioux Falls, Glacial Lakes Harley-Davidson in Watertown, Harley-Davidson of Fargo in Fargo, North Dakota, and Big Sioux Power Sports here in Sioux Falls. We have over 100 full-time employees, plus a number of 30 employees. We have responsibilities to our employees. I've also served on city councils in Brandon, South Dakota for 15 years, and in Sioux Falls here 8 years ago. I was elected with a number of the people that are sitting up here, and I had the opportunity to serve them. I've run and operated a business. I've had to write paychecks and pay employees when I wasn't able to take a paycheck myself. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to grow a business. I know what it's like to serve on a government and be responsible to the people. I believe this experience that I have, my work experience and also my city experience, is going to help me be the best mayor for you and for Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you. My name is Mike Gansay. I'm also a business.
It's coming.
It's kind of good. It's good to be here tonight. I'm glad that everybody's interested in this campaign. I'm also a small business owner. I retired and I'm disabled at the moment. I started from nothing. I'm also pretty much, I grew up in Sioux Falls. I am an immigrant. I was born in Germany. My mother brought me here when I was a year old. So I had to take my oath to be a citizen, which isn't much unlike the oath to take office. I've always kind of stood up for what's right, regardless of what ruling, what our laws are and stuff. It isn't the law that I don't like. It's the way it's you know, it should be equal enforcement. And my biggest thing is I'd like to see the city of Sioux Falls treat the citizens equally instead of picking out one individual over another individual. And I don't see where that's a big problem. But when it comes down to the point that we are growing and we're not caring about the taxpayers that have worked all their life to keep what they have, I think we are lacking compassion in that area. So I would like to try and make sure that as the experience of growing and starting a business from nothing, going against the grain, has served me pretty well. So I would like to bring that into the city and make sure that people are not falling through the cracks. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg.
Hello, my name is Greg Jamison. Just in full disclosure, I have received the AARP membership card in the mail.
Excellent. Well, the question is, what did you do with that envelope when you got them?
Still in a state of denial, I will tell you. I want to do just a quick summary of a little bit about myself. 52 years old. I've been married for 32 years. I have a child, two children, one 30 and one 28. They both live in Sioux Falls. Small business owner for 23 years. I was on the Sioux Falls City Council for 8 years and currently serve today as a representative for District 12 in Pierre. Driving here today was a little rough. I had one of those moments where you kind of wonder, is this really worth it? Should I be driving? I did make it. But really, in a quick sum up of why I'm running for mayor. I grew up here And for somebody that I visited with earlier, I have visited other places, so I do know that Sioux Falls is a great community. I've experienced other places, just to be clear. But I grew up in a family of 9 kids, one of 9 kids, and all my brothers and sisters live here. All my nephews and nieces live here, except 3, but amounts to about 35 nephews and nieces, family members. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a Jameson in town. So there's a lot of commitment to this city. What happens here is important to them. It's important to me, and it's worth fighting for. Running for mayor is a big deal. It's a serious job. It's a full-time commitment. And I'm willing to do that because it's worth it. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Jolene Letcher, and I am so excited to be our next mayor and to call Sioux Falls the city of opportunity. Because for me, it has been the place that has given me the opportunity to start my career. Some of you may remember I was a television reporter, usually the one that got thrown out in the snow and the rain and the tornadoes. It has given me the opportunity to build my businesses and be an entrepreneur, taking the last $300 in my savings account and a willingness to work hard and take an old Daylight Donuts bucket that was thrown away, pick up dog poop, yep, you heard it right, and turn that into a company that is today in 6 states and the world's leader in DNA testing for dog waste. I also have an advertising agency as well that has been received international recognition for its work. But this city has also been the place where I have had the opportunity to raise my daughter in a safe community, and it is the opportunity this city and this community has given me to heal from the pain of my past, having been a victim of child sexual abuse, and help with the passage of Jolene's Law named after me. Because of Jolene's Law, and because that I went to the legislature and stood up for the voices that are not heard, today there are more than 8,000 South Dakotans that know how to spot child sexual abuse. And we have regional reporting centers and so many other things. It is that understanding of how to be an entrepreneur, how to invest in business, a passion for Sioux Falls, and an understanding of how to make good policy to make good government work. Well, that's what I'm bringing to City Hall on May 15th through a platform that is built on trust and transparency, innovation, and growth, because we are the city of opportunity. And that means opportunity for all, and I am so excited to be the future mayor of the City of Opportunity.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, AARP and YPN, for putting this together. My name is Paul Tenhaken, and my background is I grew up in Worthington, Minnesota. I went to college in Sioux Center, Iowa, and moved to Sioux Falls in 2000. And have been a resident of Sioux Falls for the past 18 years. I have a lovely wife, Jill, also of 18 years, and 3 kids, Jade, Max, and Nora. They're 12, 9, and 5. My wife's not here because I have taekwondo, gymnastics, and tennis tonight. So I'm in that stage of life. I am a 40-year-old business owner, an entrepreneur that has always had a passion for this city. And it really became a stirring in my heart about 2 or 3 years ago to pursue this opportunity. And I would be lying if I said this isn't a hard thing to do when you're 40 years old and you have young kids. But I owe a lot to this city, and I owe a lot to this community. For the last 10 years of life, I have started and founded a company called ClickRain, a marketing technology agency that I exited at the end of this last year. We had 36 employees at that point, about a $5.5 million revenue company. I'm very proud of that, but that was a phase. It's a great company, it's in great hands, and I'm ready to embrace this opportunity. A few things I'm passionate about, which I hope we'll have a chance to talk about, is I really want to tackle a crime problem in our city. And anecdotally, I always thought we had some growth in crime and growth in meth, but as I start to dig into this, we have a substantial problem there. And not just in enforcement, but also with prevention and education. So I'm going to be passionate about that. I'm passionate about workforce and young people. Those 36 employees at ClickRain, the oldest was 43 years old. So I get young people. I know how to recruit and retain a young workforce. It's what I've done for the last 10 years, and it's going to be critical to the future of this city. You know, 75% of our workforce in 2025 is going to be millennials. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to furthering our discussion.
Greetings. My name is David Zokaitis, and people ask me why I want to run for mayor. Well, there's more than one reason. One reason is that I don't like what's going on in the world. There's a lot of corruption, there's crime, there's polluted politics, and we don't need to accept that anymore. We need to get out and change it. Well, I've spent years trying to figure out the causes and the manifestations and what we can do about it, but understanding is not sufficient. We need to go out and work for change. And that's one reason why I'm campaigning for mayor, because I don't like what's going on and I need to change it. We need to change it. Another reason is, well, I was volunteered. I went to a lot of city council presentations and a lot of meetings, and I made this nice analysis of this topic with PowerPoints and references, and did that time and time again. People said, when are you going to run? So when are you going to run? Well, I finally said, oh, okay, I'll run for mayor. Seems like a good plan. But if we dig a little deeper, I've been thinking about this kind of stuff for at least a decade. I've been kicked out of bed time and time again because there's stuff been rattling around inside my head. I need to get it out. Well, but you know, having a passion for truth and justice means that you've got to put that in action, and you've got to go and run for mayor. So here I am. We're going to do it.
Great. Thank you to all the candidates. All right, we're going to jump right into questions. And again, you can continue to submit them on Twitter using Topics on Tap. I'm going to be using questions that we received in advance of the forum, as well as grabbing some from Twitter. So we're going to start with one that we received in advance of the forum. And Jim, you will be responding first, and then we're going to go right down the line and come back. It eventually will sort of get into a rhythm, and then I will screw us up at some point. But we'll give it a go. So the first question, and each of you will have the opportunity to respond with 90 seconds. How will your administration be the same or different than the current one?
It's interesting. I did serve, 8 years ago, I was elected to city council, and I did serve for 4 years under the current administration. And I've attended, needless to say, a number of meetings since I started the campaign. And there are some things that we can do to be different. We all have talked about it, and you've heard it in the news recently. You talk about transparency, you talk about communication, and honestly, I really truly believe those are really some of the key points that we need to do. What I've learned is that the citizens want to make sure that their city is responsible to them. They want to know that we are spending their money wisely, and they want to know that we're doing their job, that we got elected for. You know, it is an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Sioux Falls. We were elected to do a job. And we need to be transparent about that. As a business person, you go behind closed doors, you can make decisions, you can come out and implement change immediately. As a city councilor, as a mayor, you can't do that. You have a responsibility to the citizens. I'll be behind those doors with my team making decisions, but when I come out through that door, I need to be as transparent as possible. You need to know how we're spending your money, and you need to know that I'm doing the job that you hired me, that you voted me to do. And I will do that. I'm making a commitment to you that I will be as transparent as possible, and I will communicate what it is that we are doing at City Hall. And I'm also going to work very closely with the City Council, get to know them all better, and hopefully we're going to be able to partner up with a number of great things for the city of Sioux Falls.
Thank you, Jim. Mike.
First of all, I'd like to say please understand that my surgeries have left it to I don't like to stand too much.
Perfect. Whatever you're most comfortable with.
I would like to express the thing is like I had said in my opening statement, that I'm not against laws, I'm not against ordinances, but what I am against is when you are equally not treated the same. So basically, I think that if you work with the city of Sioux Falls and any entity, whether that be the Parks Department, the Police Department, the Fire Department, you have a right to speak out on what you see as wrong. Transparency starts from inside. However, if the police can't speak what's going on, if the fire can't tell you what's lacking, then we need to honestly have them involved and not tell them that if you say anything against the city entity, you may lose your job. So my whole argument in this whole thing is my administration will unleash the people that work for it to be able to come to the public on anything that they have as an issue, including the city councilors. That is their job. Their job is to go out and see their people and find out and bring it back to the mayor so we can discuss it. There is no other way to do it except for making sure that the whole government follows its oath, that we will make sure that you are the ones we work for.
Greg, and again the question, and I'll repeat it a couple times as we go throughout the night because I know after a while, how will your administration be the same or different than the current one? And if you ever need me to repeat a question, just ask.
Thank you, and it's okay to stand?
Yes.
So this post right here is right in the middle of everything, so if I'm doing this, it's because I'm just trying to be seen. That's a very good question. So here's the best part. Mike Huther is about as passionate a guy as you could find to run for mayor or be the mayor. I hope that I can have that same passion on every topic that comes forward. That's what I've learned working with him. So serving as 8 years on the city council, though, there is far better perspective that I have than everybody except Kenny. Both of us served 8 years on the city council. What that does is provides an opportunity for us to see how things could have been done differently. Today, how things could be done differently to improve communication between the city council and the administration and the public, the administration and the Chamber of Commerce, the CVB, all the organizations in town. So the differences are very immense, really. I ran against the current mayor 4 years ago because I believed we needed to do something different. And I had strong convictions about those reasons then. This election is much different, but I've got to give Mike Huther credit. He has tremendous passion for what he's doing. I intend to have that same passion going forward, but we're going to do it in a far better way as I can see it, having 8 years of service on the city council.
Thanks, Jolene.
On May 15th, the door is coming down. The first thing that I have committed to do is to literally take the door off of the mayor's office, because it is your office. It is not my office. It is our office. And we need to rebuild the trust in city government. There is a distrust, and it's at all levels. It's city government, but it's up at the state and the federal level too. So we're going to rebuild that trust, and we are going to be transparent. And I am living the values of transparency and trust in this campaign as well. We've done Facebook Live sessions where people can ask questions. We want to engage and hear your ideas. On your chairs, you'll see forms that have a text number that you can text in your questions. We've made a commitment that when the city makes major financial decisions, there will be a one-sheet form that citizens can see to understand how and why those decisions were made and the process behind it. Because we have to be a city that people trust their government. We have to be a city to where you have transparency. Because at the end of the day, all of us sitting in here, we are citizen investors. And as investors in this city, we need to know how that money is being spent and how those decisions are being made. And for me, the change and the difference that will come in our administration, it starts on day one, but we're already putting it into practice in this campaign through the values of trust and transparency.
Thank you. Paul.
So one of the topics I'm also really passionate about is leadership, so I love this question. And I think to possibly echo what some of the other Should I stop loud? No, use that one. This in? All right. Anyway, I'm passionate about leadership, as I said. Yeah. So I think one of the things that we've struggled with a little bit as constituents and even as a council and some of the leadership in our city is a little bit of a lack of openness we felt in the last couple of years. I don't think I'm out of line in saying that. I built a career around marketing and communication. That's what I do. I communicate. I released a 2026 plan about a week and a half ago that outlines some of my priorities for the city and what I want to accomplish. So you want to talk about being open? I laid it all out for you to criticize, good, bad, or otherwise. It's a plan I worked on for about the last 4 months. One thing that really surprised me is our current mayor and our city councilors, they don't have regular touch points. They don't have regular monthly meetings. I will have a monthly meeting with each councilor, and we will sit down, and it will probably be at Kaladi's or at Cafea or at Starbucks, so the community sees it, so that they know we're talking. As councilors and a mayor, we're talking, we're communicating, we're trying to understand each other's positions, so that when we get to Tuesday night, we know where we're at, and we seek to understand each other. I'm not saying we're going to agree every time, but we need to seek to understand. So I have a very inclusive, consensus-building leadership style that I know the city is hungry for, I know the city leadership is hungry for, and I hope I have a chance to bring to Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Thank you. David.
So what's going to be different between my administration and the Youth administration? That's like asking what's the difference between night and day. There's just a lot of problems with the current government in Sioux Falls. One is tremendous secrecy. I've tried to get access to building projects to understand who makes the evaluation of what it's going to cost, and to look at who makes the selection and to look at the contracts. That's all secret. I want to know what the administration is trying to hide. I've reported constitutionality problems with city laws. Nobody cares. I get no response whatsoever. I've documented problems with perjury and assault being condoned here in Sioux Falls on the part of the police. So if you report an assault or perjury by police here in Sioux Falls, nobody cares. Well, we get to change all of that here in a couple of months. Oh, gee, and what else is there? Corruption, secret deals, civil rights, openness and transparency. We will publish anything we can possibly publish. Somebody wants to know, we'll give them the answers. And this division between city council and the mayor, I would like to flatten that organization so that I don't have to do the whole show. I just want to do it 1 month at a time, a little bit, and let everybody else help out. It's a community project, and we should treat it that way.
Thank you, David. Kenny.
When I started getting involved in city politics or with our community, I started in neighborhood meetings. I started going to neighborhood meetings not as a politician, but as a public servant, as someone who is interested in your communities. When the Munson administration was on, I spoke to Mayor Munson about going out into the communities and listening to people there. And then our mayor now has done his listening sessions. He's expanded that. But I still think that there can be more done. What I found is when you do go out into the communities, people are going to talk to you. When you're sitting in the Carnegie or in your office and you're in that official capacity, people get intimidated. So one of the things I really want to do is get out more into the public and listen to the public, find out what they're interested in, find out what their concerns are. Then I want to deal with the city council. I want to deal with them as equals. The mayor still is the leader of this community, but the city council also has unique insight that they should be able to contribute in programs like the CIP. And those are things that I want them to be more involved in. They should be. They're the ones that control the money. So I hope that we can open up our government, be more transparent, and have our citizens more involved in how we spend money here in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. All right, our second question, and Mike, you will be getting this one first, and then we'll go down the line. And this question, we got a lot of questions on this particular topic, so I've paraphrased and tried to include as many of the points that you all asked about in this one question. So as Sioux Falls is increasingly more diverse, as mayor, how would you ensure continued collaboration with ethnic minority groups in the city so that all feel and are welcome? And we also had specific questions about outreach and communication with the LGBTQ and Muslim communities. So if you could address those two communities specifically in your answer, I know a lot of our audience would appreciate it. And Mike, you're going first.
Well, the way I understand it, it all comes down to diversity. The question comes around that name, diversity, diversity. The thing is since I was an immigrant, I took my citizenship and everything. The question is diversity's been here since I can remember. It's probably been here way before my mother brought me here. The thing is all of the immigrants that came here to make us who we are today brought diversity with them. So my question is diversity now meaning something else, like should we give a law away so that we can be diverse for the others? I don't believe so. I think that everybody has to follow the same rule of law. So when diversity is brought up on any aspect, they have to understand, does diversity have to do with the way somebody cooks something different, the way they believe in their church, or does it have to be something that has to do with we have to our laws to suit them? Diversity has been something that's we're discussing that's way out of the park of where we should be with it. Diversity for other people, rights for other people, we've had that. It's all been listed. The LGBT, all of them. Everybody wants individual rights. It's all covered in the Constitution. So why do we have to break it down and make it more confusing than it really is?
Thank you, Mike. Greg.
Okay, so right next door, across the street, I think it is the Multicultural Center. I think the city has a lot of fine programs that are in place today to include all ethnic diversity in the community. Now, are you expecting a new ordinance or bill to be passed to force special groups or individuals to be hired by the city? Don't look for that to happen. But don't look for any discrimination either. A great mirror of the city staff should be a reflection of the community. And I think that's happening today. Maybe not in all the right places or at the highest levels that we would want, but generally that's what's happening. And I wouldn't look for any discrimination to occur, and I don't even know of any that has occurred in the past. I don't know if I'm missing any pieces of the LGBTQ discussion is a very hot topic for us at the state legislature. There are bills that are coming through that are going to create policies for school districts to require that they have a policy regarding those individuals. My opinion is this: people are the people. Let them be people. There are no problems that I see that we are dealing with today. Everybody is just fine being who they are. Peer does not need any new rules addressing that issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Jolene.
Sioux Falls is 20% not white. And so part of Sioux Falls looks like me, but part of Sioux Falls also looks like an incredible man that is sitting a few rows back here named Migdad, that we had an amazing conversation several weeks ago, a Marine and a Muslim in Sioux Falls, a man that truly loves this city. This city is also a mom, Stacy in the back. Her and her wife send holiday cards to legislators to remind them of how powerful and strong a family element can be, and to remember that when you make decisions. And so for me, being mayor means standing up for all of the voices. This is about opportunity for all. Our administration will have a chief diversity officer. Their role will be to live between the departments and be sure that we are communicating and connecting with the diverse neighborhoods and communities in Sioux Falls so that we're making the decisions that we need to make to help everyone have the opportunities that they deserve. And when it comes to empowering all voices, we're already doing that in our campaign. My internal campaign team is diverse because we know that not every voice sees this city the same way, and we need to be willing to hear them. And I am proud to stand up for this city of opportunity, but also this city of love. This city of love and opportunity that is made up of incredible people like Migdad and Stacy and so many others.
Thank you, Jolene. Paul.
So as I mentioned when I opened, I grew up in Worthington, Minnesota. If you know Worthington, extremely diverse community. Statistically, on school district data, I think it's the most diverse city in Minnesota. So I grew up in a very diverse community in Worthington. I see Sioux Falls actually going through some of the same challenges that we went through when I grew up in Worthington. And we have an extreme opportunity when we look at the diversity and the immigrant population that's coming to our city right now. And I say that because we have a workforce shortage on one hand, and we have an increasing immigrant population on the other hand, and we have an opportunity to connect those in the middle with potentially solving some of these workforce issues. 3 hours ago, I was just meeting with Craig Johnson at University Center to talk with him about what programs they're implementing to help solve that shortage. Specifically was asking him, what percentage of your student population is diverse? Or what percentage is Caucasian? He was about 10%. So it wasn't quite reflective of our community. He said, but we're working on that. We're working on that. I do think, however, it's one thing to say we welcome diversity and we welcome immigration and we welcome new people to our community. It's another thing to say, what are we doing as a city then, once they arrive, to acclimate them and help them be successful members of our community? And that's a whole nother thing. So you can be welcoming, but then you have to be ready, once the diversity comes, to put your arms around people and help them be successful members of Sioux Falls.
Thanks, Paul. David?
We are all just people. You know, some are a little taller, like me, and some a little shorter and a little darker, a little lighter. But none of that really matters. What matters is how we relate to each other as people. And, you know, my job as mayor is to set a vision for the city employees. That's going to be pretty easy in this regard because I've got it figured out, and we're all just people, and we need to be nice to each other. And I also like to go around and see what the issues are for various citizens and groups. So I've been in Escape, the Establishing Sustainable Connections here in town, and talked to some dark-skinned people there. And I've been to a few heavy metal shows and talked to some headbangers and see what's going on in their heads. And I just get out and talk to people, and I'll keep doing that when I'm mayor. And if there's a concern for the Islamic group or the lesbian group, oh, sure, let me know. I'll be trying to help you out. Oh, and I was in the Women's March. I wasn't in drag, but I did go and held up a nice sign. So yes, it'll be open, honest, transparent, and diverse, and ready for everybody.
Thanks, David. Kenny?
To me, diversity is more than just a skin color. It's talking about people. It's talking about businesses. In 1928, my grandparents moved to Sioux Falls. They were recruited to come here. Why? Because they were told that Sioux Falls was a welcoming community where they could raise their children in a safe environment. They could get an education for those children and make a better life for those children. That is still true today. And that's what we need to continue to do here. When we talk diversity, it is more than just ethnic change. What is this? It's acceptance. Acceptance and just change in our city. That is going to happen. You look around here. What you see is a lot of young people here. A lot of young people that are interested in our community and making our community better. And as mayor, I will lead those efforts to continue making those things happen. I work with the ethnic community. I have helped create a couple of organizations that are working on making lives better for all people in Sioux Falls. So I hope that you'll lead with me, and let's continue to move forward as a city.
Thank you, Kenny. Jim?
We are fortunate that our business community has realized the necessity of talking with our immigrants and including more of the people of color and immigrants into our businesses. There's been some huge communication going on, facilitated by the Chamber and the Development Foundation. I really truly believe that the mayor's office can continue with this. The mayor needs to be part of that facilitation. I've talked to a number of members of our African community, mainly a number of pastors in a meeting that we had. And while they're accepted into the community, and while they've got good jobs here, and their children are going to our schools, there still seems to be some issues about inclusion. Are they communicated to in a dialect or in a way that they're familiar with? I think there still needs to be a lot of work done. You know, Terry Schmidt says it best in her saying that Sioux Falls, we're the heart of America. We really truly are, and a lot of the issues that take place on the East and the West Coast don't necessarily sift into where we're at. But we do need to work hard at it. There's still some of us, there's still some of our older population that just are not accepting, and maybe they never will be. There's some of our immigrants that are moving into this city that are having problems because it's not part of their culture. I think we all need to embrace this, and together we can be better. But there's no easy way around it. It's not going to be easy, but we've got to work hard to make it happen.
Thanks, Jim. The next question is, I'm taking a couple questions that we've gotten through Twitter. So again, hashtag topics on tap, and I am keeping an eye on trying to get some of them into the conversation. Greg's ready. He's going to go first. This is about jobs. How will you attract and retain young professionals while at the same time ensure we have jobs that pay a living wage for those without college degrees?
Yeah, very good. So think of the city of Sioux Falls like some of you who are business owners out here consider their own business. You've done things and changed the way your business operates in order to keep your employees and to attract new ones. Some of that is through raising wages. Maybe it's putting a pinball machine in the break room. Whatever it takes. In some businesses in town, they're actually teaching English while you work. They're getting paid to learn English in order for them to recruit employees and keep them. So the city of Sioux Falls is no different. Imagine a city like ours having 5G everywhere in the city. If you've been downtown at the Parade of Lights or other places and other events where they've got no cell service, nothing happening. Imagine trying to tell people, oh, come to our community because you can not get cell service whenever there's a football game. So my effort is to increase the 5G network system. This guy with the clock here, I don't know what kind of clock that is, but it's like on super fast. So my hope is to have a high-tech city for those young individuals who are growing up in this tech world and have a community that interfaces with that. And that 5G network system is just one of the pieces we can do. But again, it's no different than some of you and your businesses trying to keep your employees. The city of Sioux Falls has to do the same things. Creating quality of life projects, doing all kinds of things. See, there he is. All those kinds of things to make people want to stay here and move here. We have to keep doing that.
Thank you, Greg. Jolene.
I have had the opportunity and the honor to hire many people over the years in all of our businesses and understand that at the end of the day, we want to feel fulfilled. We want to know that our purpose is served in our work, but also in our community. And so when it comes to hiring and recruiting people, we have to have work-play opportunities, and we have to have a welcoming city. We have to have a city that people know that you are welcome regardless of where you come from or what your background is, but also that there are things to do. One of the projects that we are excited to take on in our administration is building out around the Denny Sanford Premier Center, and including restaurant and retail in there so that we can grow that area economically, but also grow the opportunities there for people that do come to Sioux Falls or those of us that are already here to have fun and find those work-play opportunities that fulfill us. But also important is to recruit the next industry that will carry us through. We've had seasons of industry in Sioux Falls, from meat packing to banking to healthcare, but we need to be looking out. And I will be the mayor that looks out, not just 4 years, but prepares this city for what will come in the next 10, 20, or 30 years. Looking at the industries of biotechnology and cybersecurity. Our neighbors to the west at Dakota State University have cyber technology graduates that are leaving this state. So we need to be bringing the jobs here to keep them here, because that's how we ensure quality of life, that's how we ensure opportunity, and that is how we make Sioux Falls even stronger.
Thanks, Jolene. Paul.
So I alluded to it in my opening statement, but I'm bad at a lot of things, but I'm really good at recruiting young people. Built a career around it, built a company around it. I know what it takes to recruit and attract millennials and Gen Xers, and we have a few Gen Yers. I want to bring some of those same skills to the city, not only to city government, but to our employers in the city. Our employers are struggling with adapting to the next generation workforce. I think the city also needs a mayor in City Hall that resembles the next generation of leadership for the city. So when we go out and we make a play for a new business, or we make a play for employees to come here, who best empowers and represents the city that we want them to come and live in. And so as far as the wage growth is concerned, we do have a wage growth problem in Sioux Falls. I'll tell you that right now. We have a lot of jobs. We have a lot of $12 an hour jobs. We have a lot of $11 an hour. Those are not living wages. And so in some cases, the market needs to correct itself. And so when I'm talking to employers and they're saying, man, workforce is a challenge, Paul. Workforce is a real challenge. I say, what are you paying? They say $12 an hour. I said, well, that's 24 grand a year. That's 19K after taxes. That's 12K after daycare. Okay, that is, you're never going to get anybody for that. So you need to be realistic, Mr. Employer, about your wages as well, to make sure that they're being fair to your employee and that they're a wage someone would actually move here to work for.
Thanks, Paul. David?
Earlier, I said I like to get around and talk to people. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to people from the Friends of the Big Sioux River. And they told me that one of the best ways to attract people, young people into a town is by having rivers that are safe to canoe or kayak in. Big Sioux River doesn't qualify for that. So one way to get the younger crowd into town is by cleaning up the Big Sioux River. We've got problems with non-point source pollution, meaning farm runoff, pesticides, sediment. So if we get that cleaned up, that'll help bring people into town. Governments like to subsidize certain industries in an effort to bring them into a different community. Well, I think when we do that, we need to subsidize entrepreneurial businesses and not large established businesses. Because entrepreneurial businesses grow, they hire young technical people, and old established businesses, select Mayoral's, well, that's a whole different market and not the way to raise up wages. So we've got at least those two areas. And I don't have to be an expert in everything today. So I'm going to spend some time and do some research and figure out how else you can bring companies into town and spur development and growth.
Thanks, David. Kenny?
During my time on the city council, I watched this city grow. And it's grown because of the medical community and the banking community. I work for a large banking industry here. And one thing I've seen there is that, number one, they have hired a diverse workforce. Number two, they have given opportunity to people to grow and to prosper and also to move forward in ideals that they have for themselves or for the business. But what we're missing is that next business. A while ago, we had an opportunity to put a letter of interest in to Google. Not that we were going to get Google, but it was an opportunity to reach out nationally, to let businesses know nationally that Sioux Falls is a place to be. Sioux Falls is a place that they want to look at and take a look and see if that's where they want to move their business. We need to take those chances. Even though we may not get the opportunity to bring that business in, we still have to reach out. And as a mayor, I am going to challenge the Chamber of Commerce, the Development Foundation, and the business community to help us find those opportunities and those chances that we can take to bring new business in. By bringing those businesses in, then we can start talking about the wage problem that we have here in our city. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Jim? Share your microphone, Kenny. Thank you.
Don't start the clock yet. Okay. Anyway, I am a member of the Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce, and I'm actually really proud of it. And what I've learned through all the number of different businesses, over 2,200 businesses in the city of Sioux Falls are members of the Chamber. And what I have learned is that we have a lot of progressive companies. We have a lot of new companies, technology companies that started here. We know that our educational programs are starting to address the future as we go forward. But there are some hindrances. I'm here to tell you that it's good to bring in new businesses, no doubt about it. Governments look at ways of incenting people to bring in their businesses. We try to come up with a number of different things, from tax abatements to TIFs to cheaper properties. They're looking for new businesses. We need to give those same opportunities to our businesses that exist in Sioux Falls today. Businesses want to grow. It's extremely expensive, as any of you out there know. And we need to afford our same businesses in this city the same opportunities that we give bringing new businesses in. We have a 3% unemployment factor right now in Sioux Falls, and it is truly, really tough. Competition is driving wages up. I can attest to it. It's driving wages up in my business. And it's not just about college. It's about the trade schools and what we're offering through those and some of the incentives that our governor has right now. But we need to make sure that our existing businesses have the same opportunity to play on a level field as bringing those new businesses in. They're proven partners in our community. They're already giving to our community. They're paying taxes, and they're hiring our folks.
Thanks, Jim. Mike.
Well, I see that this is kind of a diversity question in a way, because if we're going to open the door to corporations, we should probably open the door to not only the existing small businesses, but what about all of the people that are sitting in this room that could come up and become an entrepreneur if we banked on them? We need this. It all starts with diversity, which means we need to get into the charter. We need to fix the charter. We need to relax regulation. We need to relax Taxes are the biggest thing that's driving everything up for the entrepreneur and the small business in Sioux Falls. And until we work with the state, trying to get the state to also help relax on the taxes, we're not going to be able to help those that really could do benefits for the city of Sioux Falls without bringing in large corporations when their profits leave the state. We need to work more on keeping it here. Keep it at home. Help the people that live here to generate jobs that aren't even thought of yet. And if we can do that, then Sioux Falls can be self-sufficient.
Thank you. All right, our next question, Jolene, you're going to go first on this one. Again, we got several questions on this topic in advance and a couple through Twitter while we've been sitting here. Transportation. What are your ideas for new and effective transit and paratransit options so that everyone in our city can get where they need to go?
The issue of transportation is one that we have been looking at from the beginning of this campaign, because when we talk about innovation and growth for the future, transportation is vital in that. We are running our public transportation system in this city like it is the 1970s. Well, guess what? It's 2018, and we are going to lift up public transportation. We are looking at options to use software and technology to better route, essentially Uberized by grids and quadrants. Also looking at using microbuses, smaller buses running on the outside of the city to help be more efficient and nimble, but to get people where they need to go. When we look at the issue of transportation from a public transit standpoint, it is how people get to work. It is how they get to the doctor. It is how they continue to be healthy and productive members of the city, and that is what we need to do to support them. Also, it's pothole season. We probably all bumped along a few times. So we have been looking at ideas that we can use for different surfaces, ways to do road construction in a way that is more efficient by the materials that are used, and also ways that we can use technology to communicate better when there are issues with transportation. But at the end of the day, it is not just getting from A to B. It is getting from A to B to C to D, because transportation is about getting people to where they need to be to fulfill their opportunities and do the best they can do to build up Sioux Falls and build up all of us at the same time.
Thank you, Jolene. Paul?
I'll be honest with you in that public transit is probably the hardest topic that I've dove into during this campaign. Because there's no great solutions. A lot of it, like many of our problems in our city, is we need more money. We need more funding. We want to expand our routes. We want to come up with a better bus fleet. We want to expand our hours. I met with a gal who uses paratransit regularly. It's her lifeline. She pays $2.50 a ride. The ride costs the city about $35. So there's a large loss in paratransit when that happens. And when you say a loss, well, what's that worth to that person? What's the quality of life worth to have paratransit service? Is transit a quality of life service, or is it something that should be self-sustaining? When federal earmarks went away, we lost a lot of funding in our transportation system. And I sat down with Sam Treblecock just last week, actually, to talk about this. And we talked for 90 minutes. And at the end of it, I had no other solutions than I did when I walked in there. And so that's going to be a difficult one. I think route expansion and hours expansion is something I would love to do, but again, the funding has to be there. It does drive me crazy when I drive past a bus and I see one person on it, and I know what that's costing the city to run. So are we selling something that people aren't buying? And if they aren't, how can we make it a better service that they want to use? And so it makes us more money, more revenue, and is more self-sustaining.
Thanks, Paul. David?
As Paul said over there, transportation is a tough problem. Well, public transportation in particular. And we've got some real funding issues because the size of the federal government is diminishing and state government's not going to grow and city government's limited by funding. So where does the money come from? I would love to promise to fix all the world's problems, but I can't invent money. Well, it's already here, but I can't grow money on a tree. We're funding limited. So the question is, how do you do a little bit more with what you already have? The Parks and Rec department here in town is expanding the bike trail incrementally. Well, that certainly helps. It helps the people that like to walk and the people that even use wheelchairs on the bike trail. It's one way to get around. But what about buses? I mean, it's already heavily subsidized, and where do you get money for more buses? Maybe, like Jolene said, we can switch to some smaller buses at different times a day, but there's no magic solution because there's no magic supply of money. And if anybody, out there in the world has a good solution and some helpful information, well, let us know, let me know, and we'll work it in, and we'll try to find a better way to do things.
Thanks, David.
Sorry I didn't have a better answer, but some problems are just hard.
Thanks, David. Kenny.
In 1989, the paratransit was run privately. In 1990, the city took over the paratransit unit and created Sutran. When they started hiring drivers, they took from the private entity that was providing the service. I was the second person they hired. When the general manager down there, before she hired me, she asked me a question. Her question was, if I hire you and I have a problem and have to fire you, is your father going to have a problem with that? At the time, he was a city commissioner overseeing transit. I told her no. And it was a great relationship. I served 5 years. I enjoyed what I was doing. The people were very appreciative of the service that they got. But the problems that we have with transportation and our transportation system here in Sioux Falls are massive. A few years ago, we had a committee, Councilman Jameson, Representative Jameson, and I were part of that committee. We brought the user groups in. We talked about the issues and tried to find resolutions. We have upgraded systems as far as taking care of mapping transportation in the city and trying to resolve it that way. We've looked at the grid system, and a lot of those things just do not fit. So it is still a big problem that we have and something that we're going to have to continue to work on. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Jim?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that a number of us up here have had in common is that we've studied the transit system before, and we've taken questions from people, and we've heard testimony from a lot of caring people and a lot of people who are dependent upon our paratransit system and our transit system. We've got some great facilities in Sioux Falls. We opened up a new bus depot, so to speak, downtown, which is fantastic. But this is one of those topics. I'm going to have to agree with some of the panelists up here. It's one of those topics there is no simple answer for. And we're going to have to continue to have dialogue on it. At some point in time, we will need to respond. I'm not sure when that time is, but it's fast approaching. So we will continue to have dialogue. It's going to have to continue to be studied. We have limited funds in which to invest in the program. So we're just going to have to work harder at it.
Great, thanks. And I'm going to repeat the question for the last two here. Mike, you're going to be next. And it might not be quite excited to paraphrase, but please give your ideas and plans for new and effective transit and paratransit options to ensure everyone in Sioux Falls can get where they need to go.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's that difficult question to answer. I believe it's a simple solution, and that is we need to quit spending so many millions of dollars on expansion and let Sioux Falls catch up. We need to get the transit parts and the parking and the pickups and the drop-offs all in place before we keep expanding, because we're expanding beyond our means. We need to finish a lot of things in Sioux Falls that have been lacking for the last 35 years. And until we do that, if we keep expanding, we're talking about a problem that we've created because of the expansion. So if you don't want to face that fact, then I guess we'll continue to expand and we won't have enough transportation allowable for them that need it. So first of all, we have to quit spending money where we don't need to spend it. We need to spend it on the infrastructure, on the transportation.
Thanks, Mike. Greg.
Thank you. So roughly 4 years ago, while I was on the city council, I was the one who initiated a transit task force. I was the one who realized there's a problem in our community with the transit system. Just real quick, the transit system works like this. It's called a hub and spoke system. So all those central things that happen downtown, and then they all go out into these different routes. It will take you an hour or more to travel from that hub in the middle out to your location in some cases. That is not workable for anybody. Nobody wants to ride the bus. People are riding the bus because they have to, because of their financial situation. Some people are doing it because they want to be eco-friendly in our community, and that's great. The problem with the system is there aren't enough riders to sustain the system. It takes $12 million of city money to operate the transit system. The easy fix is to spend more money. But at some point you have to find a balance between what's reasonable and what's affordable. So we analyzed this completely from top to bottom. And there are solutions that are in play today about raising the fares, minimizing the routes, changing the routes. I came up with the idea of a grid system. So imagine, if you will, a bus system that travels up and down Minnesota Avenue. Every 15 minutes you could catch a bus. And then there's a bus going up and down, say, 41st Street or 12th Street. You can transfer from each of those places. Every 15 minutes you could catch another bus going another direction. The system is a large, lousy system. We need to make it a great, smaller system that we can afford.
Thanks. And the timeouts go so fast. We're going to have time, I think, for one more question and then closing statements. So I'm going to take a little license here. We have questions that have been submitted on crime, on housing, on transparency in government, on ensuring that working citizens who couldn't be at an event like this are heard by our city government. I'm going to ask each of you to say what you think the #1 challenge facing our city is and what you specifically would do to fix it as mayor. And we're going to start with Paul.
So I thought I knew what I knew when I got into this race, and as I've been diving into issues more, without a doubt the #1 issue I want to tackle is our crime problem. And a lot of that crime problem is a drug problem, and a lot of that drug problem is a meth problem. So in the last 7 years, we've had an 85% increase in narcotics cases in our city. We've had a 70-some% increase in armed robberies. We've had a 90-some% increase in domestic assaults. And as I meet with the Sheriff's Department, as I meet with the PD, as I do these ride-alongs, there is a meth thread that's woven through a lot of this. And I actually had the opportunity last week. I sat down with a meth dealer who just got out of federal prison 8 months ago. And we sat at Caribou, and I did not know what to expect, but I wanted to unpack this meth thing from the eyes of a dealer. Where he was getting it, how he was selling it, what could we do about it? So I am really seeking to understand what we can do about this meth problem. Probably the #1 thing we can do right now is we need to empower our police force again. Our police force does not feel supported by our city hall. I'll say that. You may think they don't, and they need to be empowered again. And so empowering our police force is one. Prevention and education is also a big part of that equation as well. We've pulled some prevention funding from the schools, and we also have, in some cases, I think, done a poor job of helping rehabilitate people to keep them out of our system. So there's kind of a three-legged stool to that problem, and that's how I hope to correct it.
Thanks, Paul. David?
That question again, you said, is what's the biggest problem?
In your view, what is the biggest challenge facing our city, and what would you do as mayor to fix it?
Well, we'll generalize this question just a little bit and say, what is the biggest challenge facing America today? Well, in my opinion, the biggest challenge in our culture is greed, and greed as manifested in expensive elections. Because when elections are expensive, then politicians, including us, we got to go out and get all of this money, and we got to fuel our campaign with that money. And then pretty soon our political decisions, our appointments, the laws we make are all designed to curry favor among our donors. Well, and then you get massive income inequality, and then you get policies like the war on drugs, which supposedly is for the public health, but instead has entirely different, quite surreptitious purposes. Its origin can be dated back to the 1930s when pulp paper companies wanted to prevent competition from hemp pulp paper companies. And then there's some racism and corruption in there. Well, we need to, if we could do anything, it would be to change who pays for elections so that we can resolve some of these problems. And then we'd get government for the people. And then we'd be able to replace prisons with treatment centers and reduce crime in that manner. So it's kind of sneaky. There's all these convoluted, twisted origins, but if we could change that one thing, that would be it.
Thanks, David. Kenny.
I agree with the last two candidates that crime here in our city needs to be addressed. But something else that I want to address, and that's workforce housing, workforce development, affordable housing. I feel that we're watching our city, our core of our city, being redeveloped because that's what we do. And the core areas are some of the older areas of our city. A lot of the homes there are needing of redevelopment or being destroyed. And I feel that, we have heard more and more that affordable housing is these massive apartment complexes that we see. Apartments are a good part of a housing plan for a city, but you still have to have neighborhoods. Neighborhoods for all income levels. And I feel that there are old ideals and new ideals that can be utilized in our city and our community to help alleviate the affordable housing issue that we have here in the community. And by utilizing the nonprofits, the home builders, the developers, I believe this is a very solvable issue that we have here in our city. And by creating those neighborhoods, you create pride in home ownership. You create pride in neighborhood. You build those friendships that are lifelong friendships that you'll always have. And I feel that that is a very important issue here in our city.
Thanks, Kenny. Jim.
Really, it's really kind of an unfair question, and it's really a thought process here because everything is intertwined in what we do in the city, quite honestly. We need to have good paying jobs. With good paying jobs and good salaries, we can afford housing. We need to have police protection because we need safe neighborhoods. We need safe housing. We need safe affordable housing. We need safe workplaces. There's so much that can be done and that needs to be done in this city, but it still comes down to having the opportunities to be able to grow a family and support a family. It's still about jobs, and it's still about good paying jobs. With a job, you can buy a house. With a job, you can have lifestyle opportunities that you've never been able to enjoy before. So we need to continue to work with our business community. The mayor's office needs to facilitate the discussion that continues. There's limited revenues growing in this city, and we have to make sure that we spend this money wisely. It's about partnerships, and partnerships need to be developed.
Thanks, Jim. Mike?
Well, I think I come down to the simple fact again and being that if I get in to be mayor, that the biggest thing is we're going to get in and reform the charter, because if we relax regulation, if we reform the charter, we can pretty much allow the police to do their job. We can make sure that the city councilors can do their job, and I can do my job. But the biggest thing is it all involves everything. Yes, we have a crime increase. Yes, we have a transportation problem. But I think that it all starts in our charter, and it all starts in our ordinances and our codes and everything, so that we need to give relaxation to the citizens of Sioux Falls so that the people that do work for Sioux Falls can do their job properly and make sure that the funds are available there first before we keep expanding.
Thanks, Mike. Greg?
Thank you. So first we need to acknowledge that Sioux Falls is a great city, right? I mean, everything really is going really good. We've completed our event center. We have all kinds of new amenities in the city. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars in those other things. My whole campaign started off with smoother roads ahead. I drove a motor grader through the 4th of July parade with a banner on it that said, smoother roads ahead. And that's a lot about our roads, but it's also about how government works with the City Council, the state of South Dakota, and the citizens of Sioux Falls. But it's also a lot about our roads. Consider all of the investments we have in our community, all the parks and all the buildings, the event center, all those things. Nothing compares to the amount of money we have invested in our roads. We have more than $1 billion invested in our roads. So my intentions are to ensure that those new roads get built so that new developments can occur. Our highest traffic count roads are smoother and taken care of. The other piece is to add smart traffic signals in our community. No more waiting at a red light when there's no other car in sight for it to turn green. I don't know if anybody else has a red light that owns them like I do, but I've got one that just owns me. That can save money, it can improve the quality of life. We live in a high-tech world. We can have these smart adaptive traffic signals to move with the traffic. So we're only fixing minor things. This is like Tom Brady deciding whether he should wear a glove or put a Band-Aid on his hand for the Super Bowl. That's what kind of community we have. We've got it going on, so we're only fixing small pieces.
Thank you, Greg. Jolene.
We need to trust. We need to trust that our city leaders do what's best for us. And that trust starts with transparency. We've already made those commitments to bringing down the door on May 15th, to opening up decisions and helping our citizen investors know why we're spending and making the decisions that we are. We also have to trust that our next mayor, that I will stand up for the voices that don't always easily get heard, stand up for the voices of our LGBTQ community, our voices of diversity, regardless of your race or your religion or where you were born, that you will stand up and fight and trust that I will be a mayor that doesn't just point to problems, but points to solutions. I stood up and I fought for the children and families of this state when legislators tried to kill Jolene's law. And today, because of that fight, we are saving lives across this state. That is the fight, and that is the commitment, and that is the trust that you can have in our administration. Also knowing that we are going to look for solutions through firsthand experience. I rode along with our law enforcement women and men here in Sioux Falls, all 3 shifts, including the overnight one, finding those solutions and not just pointing to the problems, because we have to trust that we have leadership that believes in us, that is open and transparent, speaks for our voices, and is not just pointing to problems, but finding solutions, so this remains the city of opportunity.
Thanks, Jolene. All right, we are at the time for closing statements. And again, each of you have 2 minutes. David, you're going to start. And again, we've had so many different topics come in. You probably all have your closing statements perfectly scripted, but in the event there's any room to make a comment or one of these issues really speaks to you, I'm just going to share a few of the other issues that we weren't able to get to a question on. Supporting low-income kids and families, supporting working moms, bike trail expansion, public safety, civic engagement, the city budget, gender gap, complete streets, supporting our schools, increasing wages, which we did talk about a little bit, your background for leadership, how we can fight isolation in the city, and refugee support. And there may have been others I missed, so I apologize that, but that's a lot of them. So with that, David, you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes for about 10 days worth of talking. For me, my number one issue is promoting government for the people. That's it. Everything else is a logical consequence of that particular goal and aspiration. Now we should look for a little while what happens to government when that's nobody's consideration whatsoever. So let's look at the two housing crises in my lifetime. In one during the Reagan era, and the banks were bailed out under a Republican president, and once during the Obama era, banks bailed out by a Democratic president. Both times, apparently the problem is that government was run by the bankers. So when you get deregulation in an important industry and bad things happen, and then you get a major disaster. And personally, I had to foreclose and go through a bankruptcy. So that's on a grand scale that we can see that when the government's not for the people, very bad things happen. But we've got similar issues here in Sioux Falls. We want to pretend that our town is exempt from that, but I don't see any evidence for that. A couple of years ago, in 2014, the city employed Walker Parker professionals to tell us that we could build a parking ramp at a certain size for $10 million. 3 years later, we're putting up a ramp that costs us twice as much, a little bit more, smaller. The calculated costs per space is about 3 times the report that the Walker professionals gave us. And I think that's a problem. So we got to find issues like this and get rid of them. We need to resolve what appears to be corruption in Sioux Falls. And there's a $10 million example of things that shouldn't happen. The city supports unconstitutional laws that are blatant and violate civil rights. We got to get rid of this stuff. We need a police department that can go out and talk to people and get support from us, but deserves that support and utilizes things like body cameras. But I'm out of time for a 10-day talk with 2 minutes.
Thank you, David. Kenny?
Excuse me. To me, Sioux Falls has always been a safe community, and it can be safer. It's a growing community. It's a community that offers opportunity, business, and personal growth. As a government, a municipality, we should be providing services for those businesses and the people of our community. Those services should be providing a good, strong infrastructure, new and old, making sure that if you're going to be driving to a new area, that those old streets are smooth and able to be transported over. If you're going to find and interact with law enforcement, there should not be fear. There should be good interaction, and the police should have the ability to interact with the community, all citizens in the community. I've gone to a lot of the police retirements that have happened over the last few years, and we've lost a lot of experience there. But it's given opportunity for new officers to come in. Those officers have new ideals, and we can utilize those to make our community more interactive with the people who live here. Then our housing issues. Once again, those issues can be resolved, but we need to work with the business community, the home builders, the developers to make that happen. There are good ideals out there. There's good nonprofits out there working to make that happen today, but we can enhance that. And then working with the diverse communities that we have now in our community. Growing up in Sioux Falls, when we talked diversity, it was either my sisters or my cousins. But now I've watched the diversity happen since I came back in 1980 from the service. And it's good for our city. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Jim?
You know, life is a series of experiences. And in my lifetime, I've had a number of experiences. From going to school, from seeing my kids born, from getting married, from starting a business and having to scrape and trying to figure out how I was going to pay my rent, from living in a community, learning what it's like to grow a business, learning what it's like to give back to a community, learning what it's like to serve your community on a city council, or being involved in 2 different cities, seeing your kids go to college and take over your business, seeing a community grow and seeing people that are involved, seeing young people move into our community, seeing how our police take care of us, seeing the challenges that we have before our court system and before our governments. Life is experiences, and that's what I'm bringing to this community. I've served this community, I've worked in this community, it's my life. When we talk passion, I think all of us up here are passionate about our communities because we want to see it improve and we want to be able to provide for our children and for our grandchildren. I'm making a commitment to you that as your mayor, I plan on serving my 4 years and I will run again for another 4 years. We are the heart of America, and I want to continue to make sure that we're going to live the dream. But it's going to take work, and it's going to take your involvement, and I will listen and be a mayor of all of our citizens. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Mike?
Can I stand up this time?
Sure.
Okay, well, let's see. I'm an entrepreneur, business from nothing. I didn't go to the bank and get a $200,000 loan. I didn't have anybody to help me, so mine was jumping hurdles too. So I learned as I progressed in the business. But the thing is it's still actually going today, and it's, you know, what do you consider success? I'm a millionaire? No. I just made enough to make a fair, honest living. But the thing is, though, I think it taught me that just because you're told you can't do something doesn't mean that you can't. If you believe everything that you're told, then you restrict yourself from change. And I believe that if I can help people, and I have behind the scenes, I've never been publicly involved or you know, been there down at the food line helping out so I get publicity. I was never going to do this. I didn't think I was going to run for mayor. But I thought, you know, I've helped many other people understand that when they're told something about the law and they believe it, like the number one thing is you can't fight City Hall. I believe I proved that different in many ways. I proved that to a lot of people. And now if I become City Hall, you don't have to fight me. I'm for the citizens' rights. I'm for the taxpayer. I'm for the people that work just like I did.
Thanks, Mike. Greg?
Well, first off, you hold that one. Okay. First off, thank you for inviting us, inviting me, the AARP, the YPN group. I've got to mingle with some of you before we started, and I appreciate that time. One idea I wanted to bring up was the city finances. We talked about, one of the questions came through, it takes about 3% sales tax growth in our community just for us to stay even. We're at 1.5%. We are almost below water. So, I mean, we're at 1.5% really below water. Back in 2009, when the economy was in the tank in Sioux Falls, we were at a negative 3% sales tax growth. The state of South Dakota is funded in the same way that the city of Sioux Falls is, with those sales tax dollars. It is imperative, if we want to see things change in our community, that that amount rise. And the biggest impact is from our farmers. The ag economy in our state is impacting the way that our city operates. We all need to understand that the way the city is funded is virtually by our farmers. All of us in this room are probably doing great. Things are good. Business is happening. But why isn't the city continuing to raise revenue? It's because of our ag economy. We just need to probably understand that a little bit. And I'll wrap this up. So I had 8 years of service on the city council, and I'm now in my second year as a state legislator. My experiences doing that has prepared me to be mayor of Sioux Falls. I have learned from the last 4 years of exactly what not to do as mayor. There is so much to learn. This job is serious. It's intense. My experiences have prepared me well for this job. I'm excited about it. I have the passion. I have a plan to execute. I'm all about smoother roads ahead. And literally, it's a lot about roads. Really, it is. But it's also about working together better with the community, the city council, all those other organizations, the state of South Dakota. I ask for your vote, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Jolene?
We believe in tomorrow. That's why we're here. And we believe that we have laid out the plan for progress that will move Sioux Falls forward for today and tomorrow and the decades to come. A plan that is laid out, that is built on trust and transparency, knowing that the public's money is spent in public because it's our money. Knowing that on May 15th, when I become mayor, the door will come down to the mayor's office because it is not my office, it is our office. Knowing that we will use innovation to spend more efficiently and grow this city. And know that growth means embracing our diversity. Knowing that growth means that we are changing and moving forward. And I know these things are possible because I stand before you with an unrivaled resume of knowing how to build a business from a crazy idea into something that leads in the industry across the world. I stand before you knowing these things are possible because I have an unrivaled resume of advocating for the voices that have been lost, of standing up, if it's in Pierre or if it's in Sioux Falls, for doing what is right, for passing legislation and knowing what happens when government does good because people that care are there. And knowing that there is a difference between a public servant and a politician. And what we are going to do is we are going to serve the public. Because we do believe in tomorrow. And the tomorrow for our city of opportunity is one I am excited to lead forward. And on April 10th, I look forward to getting your vote as we lead the city on, our city of opportunity for all.
Thanks, Jolene. Paul.
Well, I want to thank Sarah, AARP, YPN for putting on this great forum tonight. It was about a year ago, actually, that I was getting into the final innings of deciding if I was going to run for mayor. And I remember sitting down with my wife and saying, honey, I don't think timing's good. We've got 3 young kids, got this business we've got to figure out what to do with. And she said, Paul, you got to do this. She said, Paul, you have the leadership background, you have the business experience, you have the community support, you have the entrepreneurial background. You would be a great mayor. And for those of you who are married, you know there's nothing more empowering than when your spouse puts his or her arm around and says, you can do this. So I'm doing it. I think the next leader of this city is going to have some challenges that will need to be addressed from a central point. They're going to need to be able to reach up to our older community, to the 60-year-old worker who's gotten laid off and his resume keeps getting passed over, to the millennials who are moving to our city and we're needing to recruit, attract, and retain, to someone who's managed multi-million-dollar budgets in both the public and private sector, to someone who's led community boards. And so it's really going to take a comprehensive, well-rounded leader. I hope I'm that person. I'd love to earn your vote April 10. And I think the closing statement that I want to make is, what does the next generation of leadership look like for our city? What does the next generation of Sioux Falls look like? A city that our kids will stay in, your grandkids will come back to. That's the Sioux Falls I want to help lead. So thank you very much tonight.
Thank you, Paul. And let's give all of our candidates a big round of applause for getting through this. And I really appreciate everyone getting out here tonight. It is not pretty out there, but we'll all get home safely if you drive slowly. And for our candidates, feel free to check out all the questions on Twitter using the hashtag TopicsOnTap, and I'm sure you can respond that way. And thanks again for everybody for being here, and have a great and safe evening.
Folks, anybody else want to entertain us?
We don't come up here to entertain you. We come up here to inform you.